So we're going to have a yummy floor-based class today. This evening while I'm recording, it's a warm day. May not be a warm day when you come to do this recording, but I'm feeling quite sluggish. And because it's the evening here as well, I don't feel like I want to be anything other than sluggish. So I'm going to honor that state of my body and have offer you a very cushy kind of practice. And if there's anything in it that doesn't sit well with you, sorry, getting you to start on the floor and the usual props of bolsters and cushions and whatnot. And so if there's anything within the class that is not suitable for your mood or your body, then let it go and either rest or find something else that you prefer. We will do some strength work, not a whole lot, but it's not going to be all restorative and swishy. But as you land on your back, your side, your belly, wherever you'd like to be, notice if you are ready to be still, and if you're not, keep moving, and if you are, then be still. And feel free to close your eyes or not, as you see fit. And notice the state of play in your body today. Before I pressed record, we were just talking about the tendency in menopause for symptoms to come and go, and that we can have chunks of time where we seem to have all the hot flushes and maybe some symptoms that come up again and again for you when you are symptomatic. And then maybe on top of that, there might be a little new symptom, one usually of the more unusual ones or less common ones, like say nausea or dizziness. But that there are some symptoms that tend to be with us every time we have a surge of symptoms, and that there are times when symptoms seem to dissipate. And this is the nature of perimenopause, I should be specific, where there is this fluctuation of hormones, so that sometimes there is quite high levels of estrogen in the body, and then suddenly it may plummet. And high levels of estrogen have symptoms associated with them just as much as low levels do. And low progesterone, as we know, is a contributor. Changing stress hormone levels are contributors. There's going to be a wide array of reasons why you'll have symptoms or not have symptoms at any given moment. But take a moment to notice what are your recurrent or your more frequent tendencies. And if you're postmenopausal, most of us still have the odd symptom that still bubbles up every now and then. And some of us will hot flush for the rest of our lives, usually less frequently, less intensely, maybe. But as you check in with some of your familiar tendencies, symptomatic tendencies, notice, are you at a time of them being around a lot, or are they quite in the background or infrequent? And see if you can take a moment to notice what might be contributing to their presence or absence. What are you doing? What's happening in your life at the moment? What are your food choices at the moment? What's your stress like, etc., etc. For me, warm weather definitely gets my hot flushes happening. It's not always something we're choosing. It can just be our environment. And what is it like to sort of make acquaintance with your symptoms and their causes in as neutral a fashion as possible? We know that mindset really contributes to our well-being at any time of challenge. And given that menopause is not fatal, it's not as concerning as a major illness, then we can see how mindset could really positively contribute. We can't mindset our way out of certain diseases, but we can manage being in them better. But we can mindset our way to lower impact of our menopausal symptoms. Part of that is by, as I say, making acquaintance with your tendencies and seeing them as objectively as you can, contributed to by a wide array of circumstances, and knowing that the more reactionary we are, the more intense it's going to get. So really what we're doing is we are using CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, by trying to get to know our challenge so that it feels less threatening or less overwhelming, and moving towards neutrality. And could you notice in your body somewhere that feels kind of neutral, somewhere that doesn't feel particularly marvelous or particularly difficult? And somewhere that you don't have a whole heap of judgment about. And then could you notice, does the arrangement of your body feel fairly neutral, or is there anything in the way you're lying that is kind of stretched or contracted, or are you fairly middle of the road? And let's aim for middle of the road. And then could you notice your breathing and find a breath that is a neutral breath, by which I mean it's not as fast as our day-to-day 14 breaths a minute, but it's also not a super duper yoga breath. It's something that feels easy, but that you're conscious of it. And could you notice if your facial expression could be more neutral? Is there a frown or a set of the jaw that might be a little less than neutral? And I guess that's about allowing face to relax, the jaw to relax, the space between the eyebrows to relax. Neutral you. And could you find your way to lying on your back with your knees bent if you're not already there? And organize your feet about hips width apart. And rest your hands approximately on your lower abdomen or the sides of the front, but out to the sides of the pelvis, where your elbows naturally land, and then the hands naturally land. And this position, constructive rest or semi-supine, will give you the most neutral spine position for when we're lying on the ground. So there will be the little natural curves of the spine at the arch of the lower back, the backward curve of the upper back, arch of the back of the neck. And let the breath continue to be a point of focus. And notice a sense of neutrality across your shoulder blades. And just tuck your chin slightly down. I don't mean to hold your chin down, but just a slight slide of the back of your head up the mat so the chin slightly goes to a double chin, and then completely relax. Just so you have a sense of the back of the neck being a little bit long. And we're going to go into a little practice of the Alexander technique, which is a practice of a movement-based practice where the principles, the central principle, which is so common across many movement modalities, is trying to return the body to neutral so that we're not living with our old tensions and patterns. And one of the cornerstones of the Alexander technique is lying in this position in constructive rest or semi-supine for 17 minutes a day would be the basic prescription. And this is a practice where there are directions given to the brain, to the imagination, to enhance a building freedom in the spine. If you find your chin is slipping to poke up and it's hard for you to keep the back of your neck long, just put a small like paperback book under the back of your head so it helps you to feel that length in the back of the neck. And notice again the neutrality of the spine, but also the broadness of your shoulders, the broadness of your pelvis. And the first instruction in the Alexander technique in this moment is to allow your neck to be free. So by that, I guess it could be achieved by surrendering the weight of your head, relaxing your jaw, surrendering the weight of your shoulders. I allow my neck to be free. And the second instruction is, and I allow my head to move upwards and away. So slightly thinking the neck angle in a similar way to how I asked you to actually move it, but don't move it, just think it. So it's this thought of the back of the neck lengthening as if the back of your skull was sliding up the mat. This is not a lifting of the chin, and indeed it's not a doing, it's a thinking. But it's very much about the back of the neck lengthening, almost like the tops of your ears are being pulled up along the mat. I allow my neck to be free and my head to move upwards and away. And the third direction, or the third suggestion, is that the head is moving upwards and away in such a way that the back lengthens and widens. So a sense of a lengthening of the spine and a widening of the back. I allow my neck to be free and my head to move upwards and away in such a way that my back lengthens and widens. The next instruction is widening over the upper part of the arms, which means widening really across the whole shoulder girdle, widening across the chest, the shoulder blades, almost as if the upper arms were sliding along towards the two walls either side of you. Sometimes my Alexander technique teacher would talk about it being like smiling, that widening is like smiling across the chest, smiling across the shoulder blade area. I allow my neck to be free and my head to move upwards and away in such a way that my back lengthens and widens, widening over the upper part of the arms. And the last instruction or suggestion is to imagine the knees moving upwards and away, as if the knees are drifting in the direction they're pointing just a little further, almost like the knees would allow the thigh bones to separate from the hips. I allow my neck to be free and my head to move upwards and away in such a way that the back lengthens and widens, widening over the upper part of the arms and sending the knees upwards and away. You could, if you like, allow in your imagination a sense of smiling across the pelvis as well. Maybe smiling across the eyes. And imagining with all this space and these directions that you are creating an opportunity for muscles to let go of holding that they don't need. And that the body can begin to return to a more neutral state. We can breathe freer, and that our reactions don't come from an overloaded nervous system and they don't come from habitual tensions in the body. And could you imagine yourself meeting any tribulations with this sense of wideness and openness and spaciousness, neutrality? And just notice how you're doing. And this is something you could do on a regular basis. You could even open this recording and fast forward to this moment where we bend the knees and allow yourself to be directed through these directions as a great way to rest, as a great way to relieve the spine of compression. For now, though, we're going to start with arch and flatten in terms of our movement and start really small, almost like you want to move without anyone knowing you're moving. Arch and flatten as you exhale, the lower back comes closer to the floor. And as you inhale, your tail goes closer to the floor as if you're putting your tail between your feet. and your lower back arches. As you exhale, your lower back touches the floor. Or maybe not quite. Maybe you're so connected to your spine that this is so tiny that there is very little connection still of the lower back to the floor and quite a tiny arch. Whatever you feel. But try and work with this in a really interior fashion. Relaxing your jaw. And as your body gets used to the idea of moving, could you allow the movement to get a little larger if it's not already creating a bit of a mobilization of your hips and spine? So that as you inhale, you're touching your tail to the floor. The lower back is hollowing up from the floor. And as you exhale, the lower back touches the floor. And then see if, as you move for another half a minute or so, maybe a minute, if there's any movement that the body wants to sort of let go of that constructive rest, Alexander technique set of directions, and to just move towards your instinctual inhabiting of your body. And just notice if there's anything that feels different in the way that you're moving or in the layers of comfort or discomfort in the body. Really tuning in this practice to what you want and how your body reacts, much like noticing what ways your menopause affects you and what your organism would like to make things easier, maybe. So if you could begin to bring the arms into movement now in some way, which as always is making me yawn. Maybe they interlace and go up to the ceiling. Maybe they just waft around like a yawn stretch. And if you want to move from arch and flatten, you can, or you can stay with it. You might move to a little wash rag twisting of the knees, or you might hug the knees, or you might want to do a back bend. See if you can let your self-guided movement have a little moment in the sun. No one's watching you. How might your body express itself if you weren't aiming for anything but movement for the sake of movement or movement for the sake of pleasure? Just another 20 seconds or so of self-led exploration of your body's need. And whenever you feel ready, could you end up on your left side? And make sure that you have preferably as much room behind you as you're taking up in front, because we're going to end up in this same position but on the other side, and we won't be kind of shifting in the same spot. We'll be rolling to that other position. So there needs to be a good bit of space behind you. Now, if you've osteoporosis, could you stick with neutral spine and not curl into a little ball? If you don't have osteoporosis, you can curl into a fetal position. So I'm not going to do that. So don't look to me for guidance, but if you don't have osteoporosis, you can really curl in, head towards the knees, knees towards the head. If you do have osteoporosis, do bring the head a little down so that you have a little sense of curling in, but you're not really rounding the spine. And take a minute to connect to your center, to feel perhaps the movement of your belly as you breathe. Or maybe connecting to your center means more connecting down to the pelvis or to the heart, maybe. As if you were climbing into your strong and intuitive interior to access your strength, your intuition. Now, often when I do this practice, I don't give you much time to explore possibilities of not doing the whole practice or the whole physical shape. And I want to allow you that possibility now, where you may or may not end up in different physical positions. So just noticing what's nourishing about being here on your side. What feels good in your body, but also what feels good energetically. And emotionally, how are you doing? Are you really needing this cocooning? Are you feeling delicate in any way? Do you need to show your back to whatever? The world, your work, family member, life? Do you need to just cocoon in? Or maybe you're not in that need. Could you bring your attention to your navel so that if you end up moving, the movement almost springs from and expands from your navel, like when you throw a stone in a pond and ripples form? Could you imagine that ripples of movement will come from your navel? And as you tune in there, see if you can drop that stone in the pond of the navel and send a ripple of movement out through the abdomen, down through the pelvis, to eventually perhaps extend the top arm and leg away from the navel towards the top and bottom of the mat. And it may not feel safe to do that. You may only do the tiniest expansion and then exhale, curl into the navel again as if those ripples have gone backwards. They've gone into reverse motion. And again, each time you inhale, imagine a ripple of movement expanding from the navel through the body, up and down, knowing that you can then, anytime you want, exhale to let the movement curl back into the navel. And you might be doing it differently to me. You might be rolling more towards your face for that expansion and sliding the hands and the legs along the floor, almost like you're rolling to your belly. Or you might be rolling more to exactly your side, or you might start rolling more towards your back. But always roll back into your center. And as you play with letting those ripples of movement expand out from the belly, they might end up going all the way to your four extremities, your 2 feet, your 2 hands. And if you do at any point end up on your back, then let the curling in happen to the other side. So if you end up on your back, you'll be curling into your right side to your little cocoon. Anything goes. You may never get to your back, or you might choose to go to your belly and then roll on to the other side. Or you may be just on the one side with a little expansion and a little contraction. Let your whole being allow itself to express in this movement. What are you ready for? And look for the spaces that neutrality gives us. The space that neutrality gives us is a free moment in which to make a choice. So if you have a neutral attitude to this practice, that it doesn't have to be anything, then it can be everything or anything you need or want it to be. I'll leave you play with that for maybe another 6 breaths. Does it change? Explore the possibility of it becoming different, or the need for it to be the same. The closest we come to certainty here is that we close in or connect with the navel as we exhale, and we allow the possibility of a ripple of movement on the inhale. Two or three more breaths. And as with any practice, you're welcome to continue or stop any moment you like and in any position you like. So if you are deciding, if your body is deciding to stop, where would it like to stop? On your side, your back, your belly, somewhere, a mixture of all of those. And maybe where your body comes to stillness will give you some indication of how you're doing, of what your needs are. And just check what is there in the spaciousness of this moment of nothing. And then when you're ready, could you find your way onto your belly, please? It would be helpful if your sock, foot, and floor relationship allows for a little sliding. So we're going to do a sort of crawling-ish movement. And if your foot ends up kind of on a sticky mat, it'll be awkward to get the joy of the movement. So it might be that you need to be on a rug instead of a yoga mat, or that you need socks on or off, etc. Just a bit of a slidey relationship with the foot. And for the moment, though, let's rest forward on the hands. And allow your body to yield its weight. If you don't like forward on the hands, of course, turn your head. Might feel a little squishy. And check in with the neutrality or otherwise of anywhere in your body that you choose to focus on. Bits that feel a bit caught, bits that feel at ease. And then when you're ready, slide your right knee up as if you're going to try and touch your right elbow with your right knee. So the knee goes out to the side and you're on the instep of the right foot. You're not trying to lift the knee off the floor or anything. And then slide that leg naturally back. And do the same on the left knee, sliding it up towards the left elbow. But it doesn't have to go high. The knee is probably going to be about in line with your left hip and the instep of the left foot on the floor. And then go back long with that leg. We're going to get a little bit sort of strong, but in a sort of stealthy kind of almost sneaky way. So it shouldn't be too exhausting. But we're going to go kind of crawling like a lizard coming out of the marsh, out of the primordial soup. So we're going to slide the right knee up. We're on the inside edge of the foot. And as you exhale, push that leg long as if you're trying to move forward on your belly, but you can't. And then inhale, slide the left knee up. And exhale, push the foot back as if you're pushing against a big rock of granite that you're trying to push away with that foot. Inhale the right knee up. And exhale, push as if you're trying to drag your lizard belly along the floor. Inhale, left knee. Exhale, push. And do this with eyes closed if that's a comfortable state for you. Inhale, right knee. Exhale, push. And just starting to feel the sense of the muscular action of the hips and legs. And the only way that's going to work is through your imagination. That you are pushing some heavy object away with your foot as it slides down. Imagine this movement is kind of meaty. It's one of my favorite words for this sort of strength by stealth. It's sort of sensual and strong, practical and kind of playful or something, exploratory. Do a couple more on each side, really listening to the strength of your glutes and your thighs. Imagine your thighs and buttocks as really well-formed muscles. You'll probably need a little tone in the belly and maybe in the pelvic floor. And you might be a little tired in your arms too, actually. And then settle yourself more neutral again if your legs have gotten a bit funny. And either stay up in Sphinx with the head off the hands, or you can bring your head onto your hands. And give your bum a nice wobble side to side. If you're shaking off the flesh of your buttocks and lower back. And let that wobble travel up the spine into the shoulders and perhaps down the legs towards the feet. The whole body is having a wobble. Throw in a wobbler. And then come back to stillness. And this may not suit knee issues. It depends on the knee issue. We were talking about knee issues at the beginning before I pressed record, so it may not suit those with knee issues, but if you can, come up to all fours and slide the right knee to the right wrist in pigeon pose. And we're just going to get a bit meaty again. So we're going to inhale to let the hips move towards the floor. And we're going to exhale to push the shin down and try and touch the ceiling with our head through the strength of the legs. Inhale, the hips go down. Exhale, push down through the right shin and pull the left shin forward and try and rise up. You can do this up on your knuckles. You could even get yoga bricks if you wanted to be a bit more free. So we inhale and relax down. Another instruction I quite like is if you exhale and imagine you're pulling the two shins towards each other, and you should feel a real meaty muscularization of the legs and the pelvis and the pelvic floor. Inhale to relax. And just notice what you're doing in the jaw, the eyes, and the shoulder girdle. Are you getting quite tense and angular there? And could you allow some of that Alexander technique kind of thought to come in, where the back of the neck is lengthening and there's a sense of broadening across the chest and shoulder girdle, the upper arms, like those areas are smiling, and a smiling across the eyes and a neutrality of the face. Lots of work in the lower body and lots of neutral freedom in the upper. And this really is kind of one of the central things that yoga can offer us, is this ability to be neutral and free and spacious while bits of us are working very hard, or life is hard, or we have stuff going on. Managing with equilibrium whenever we can. Getting angry whenever we need to, of course, as well. The next time you squish the shins towards each other and rise up, could you stay up and just feel that bit of tiredness coming in, a really strong awareness of your muscles, of the legs, maybe the pelvic floor and the lower abdomen. And then we'll simply slide the right leg back and take the left knee forwards. You might need a little rest for your arms. You could maybe get blocks where you hadn't had them before, or get rid of blocks so that you're not leaning so heavily on the hands. Just play around with how you can make that different. And we're going to inhale to let the pelvis rest a little. Exhale, imagine you're pulling the shins towards each other as if you're trying to touch the ceiling with your head. And inhale, relax. We're kind of flossing the tendons and the nerves here with these repetitive movements, as well as making demands on the muscles. Exhale, pulling the shins together or pressing the left shin down to rise up. You might even want to play with no hands, but that's if you don't feel vulnerable in the hips and the pelvic floor. You want to feel fully in control if you're going to do no hands. And then you might enjoy a little expressive movement with the hands or not. The hands might echo the breath. Maybe you go flying like an eagle. What suits you? Exhaling with the effort. That's the rising up and the pulling of the shins in or the pressing of the shins down. And inhaling with the release, which is what the pelvic floor is naturally doing. Two more. Relax the jaw, broaden across the shoulders. And the next time you come up, when you're pulling the shins together and muscularizing the legs and lifting through the pelvic floor, we'll stay for a few breaths. Effort and effortlessness, Dirham Sukham. Breathing. When you feel ready, slide your left knee back. And I'd highly recommend using the blocks if you were using them for a little shoulder stretch. Just take them out ahead of you. Come into puppy pose with the hands up on the blocks, which means that when the head comes to the floor, there's a little challenge for the arm angle. But if you've got dodgy shoulders going on today, that's going to feel like too much, and it might be better just to have the elbows and hands on the floor, much more relaxed. See what's available to your body today. And don't forget to breathe. And know that whatever you're struggling with, if there are any struggles manifesting in your body, just like menopause symptoms, they will often come and go, unless you have a permanent condition, of course. But those kind of muscular aches and pains, we do a lot trying to diagnose them and figure out what they are and why they happened, but sometimes they just come and they go, and we don't know why. Trusting that the body will kind of do it eventually in some regions can help. And then if you feel like a face down dog, throw it in there, but it's not something that I want to make a big deal out of. This might feel like a nice logical stretch, but we're not going to linger there. We're going to come back down to our belly when we're ready. Just going to straighten myself out here. Now, you've done a variety of somatic back lifts with me before, so they'll be fairly familiar. So if you could please rest your left cheek on your right hand, you're looking to the right, and rest your left arm on the floor beside you or on your lower back with the palm up, whatever feels nicer. Just what you want to avoid, though, for this entire movement is that the left shoulder is trying to lift. The left shoulder can completely flop down to the floor. And we're going to just slightly lift the right elbow and slide the right shoulder blade down as if you're trying to put it in your back pocket, and then let it release. And then lift the elbow slightly, slide the right shoulder down as if you're trying to put it in your back pocket, and release. And one more time, maybe inhaling to slide the shoulder blade down to the back pocket, and exhale to release. And then as you inhale, just think of that slight downward trajectory of the shoulder as you lift the right elbow and the face, and the hand is kind of stuck to the face, so everything comes off the floor, and we exhale slowly down. As you inhale and lift, you can also, if you fancy it, lift the left leg. Keep the left shoulder relaxed, and every time you get to the floor, could you melt? And having this sense of being able to do what it takes, but no more than what needs to be done. So we want this rising up. We want an activation of the muscles of the back body on that diagonal from the left leg to the right shoulder. But we don't want to break the bank, as it were. And this is another one of the menopause conundrums. How can I do what needs to be done without exhausting myself, without injuring myself? And one of the best ways to move without injury, and I think that this can really come into our minds as a strong metaphor, is to look for a little bit of movement in a lot of places rather than lots of movement in one place. So what does it mean to you in this movement to think a little bit of movement in a lot of places? It's spreading the effort, and it's meaning that there isn't one area that's going to give up because of the strain or exhaust itself quickly because of taking all the effort or doing all the work. Do two more. Smooth as you can. And you don't have to go high. And as you next land and rest your forehead on your hands and let everything melt, notice the effect of the practice and this idea of how the body might be minded more sustainably if we do a little bit in a lot of areas, and how that translates to our self-care in menopause. And so for me, the metaphor is about not doing the huge things that are going to fall by the wayside, not taking up the crazy new exercise regime or the desperately restrictive diet, but making small changes in lots of little areas. And then when you're ready, rest your right cheek on your left hand and take your right arm down by your side or onto your back. I'm going to flip around in case you feel you need to see in this direction. And we can start with those little thoughts of drawing the shoulder blade down into the back pocket. And you might find that you don't need to lift the elbow this time because you'll have brought to your brain this idea of that movement. The lifting of the elbow may help you to find that movement. But when we do something on one side of the body, it tends to become easier on the other side, that at the very least, the brain-body connection becomes more tangible or more accessible. And then when you're ready, we're going to inhale. The elbow will come off the floor slightly first, and then the face and the hand is stuck to the face. It's the weirdest part of somatics for me is this hand stuck to the face and then in exhale slowly down. But I kind of like it now. Inhale, rising up, maybe the right leg wants to get involved. And exhale slowly down. As you repeat another maybe 5 times, just think about a little bit of tone in the belly so that you're not hanging down through the abdomen. And let your body find as much effort as necessary and as little as possible to create this floating movement. A little bit of movement in a lot of places. It's a phrase given to me by my somatics teacher, Lisa Peterson, who she says it, quoting it from one of her teachers whose name I can't remember. A fabulous principle. You could try for the last couple, rising up on the exhale, and notice how that may feel a little stronger in the abdomen and pelvic floor, giving you a little more support. But it may also mean that you don't lift up as high, which is absolutely fine. Maybe you've got 1 or 2 or no more left. Whenever you're ready, bring your forehead to your hands and melt as much as you can. And you might find your back doing a lovely bit of expansion. Notice what you notice. And then when you're ready, roll onto your back again. I do love a class that doesn't get up off the floor, or a practice that doesn't get up off the floor. It's just so, I don't know, there's some delicious nourishment to me to being on the floor, the support of the floor, and the falling away of pressure to achieve or to be strong or fabulous in any way. And coming back to arch and flatten now, so that as you inhale, the tail touches the floor, the lower back gently arches. And as you exhale, the lower back touches the floor. And looking again for this sense of spaciousness, this sense of making acquaintance with your body and the way that it experiences life at the moment, whatever your menopausal stage. And then when you're ready, could you take your knees one and then the other off? Sorry, one and then the other up to your chest. And hold on to your knees, one in each hand. And as you inhale, let the knees move away. So you get a little pull on the shoulders. And as you exhale, bend the elbows and let the knees come towards you, not through pulling, but through expanding and lengthening the lower back. Inhale, the knees move away. And exhale, the knees move towards you because of a lengthening of the lower back. So the hands don't have to do anything. You could even do this without the hand. Inhaling, the knees move away because of a contraction of the lower back. Exhale, they move towards because of a lengthening of the lower back. Shortening and lengthening. And just notice again this idea of a little movement in a lot of places and of as little as possible and as much as necessary. The balance we're looking for. Because, of course, we know to mind our health, there are a variety of things that we need to do, but the pressure of trying to do them all, especially more radical or exhausting or difficult ones, just kind of makes life feel like a chore for the next 30 years, 40 years, maybe 50 for some of us. Good God. What feels sustainable and what can help you maintain a sense of spaciousness so that we are coming at life from a more neutral, easeful state. And then take the feet to the floor. Notice how you're doing. Notice the sensations in your body as calmly and objectively as you can, but with interest. We're going to take a little banana pose. If you're starting to feel a little cool, this would be a good opportunity to wrap up before you take this next position. Certainly won't be getting any warmer. And for banana, we're going to take the legs long and walk your feet over towards the left. If you had a yoga mat, if you're on a mat, you'd be walking them to the left bottom corner of the mat, the 2 feet, and shifting your head a little to that left side as well, and taking your right arm and draping it beside your head. You're very welcome to have the elbow supported or the shoulder supported because you don't want the arm up here stretching awkwardly and not able to rest. So either the arm stays out wider, or if it's up high and it's not resting on the floor, it rests on a cushion. And then you might want to cross the ankles, either way, whichever feels nice, or you might not want to cross the ankles. And lastly, you may or may not want to hold, oh, excuse me, your right wrist in your left hand, just to stop it bouncing back, but there's no need if it isn't bouncing back, just if you like it. You're very welcome to have your eyes closed, but it might be also interesting to take an objective look around your room. Another way of inviting neutrality and spaciousness into our lives is by allowing ourselves to orientate to our surroundings without opinion. And how we might do that through the eyes would be to look around and wait until your eyes find something they're interested enough to look at, and try and look at it as if you don't know what it is and you're just interested in its qualities, its light and shade, its texture, etc. So there's no jumping to attitude about what needs to be done about this thing, or any memories around it, or any opinion. Just objective noticing. Feel free to do that again, to wander the eyes elsewhere. Find something that's interesting enough to look at as if some abstract piece of art. And as you look around again, just notice, how does the body feel? Is it okay with all of this? This moment? Can you induce in your body a similar, or your opinion about your body, a similar sort of neutral curiosity? Feel free to focus on your breathing for the last minute here in this position, or to let the breathing be in the background and just to notice as objectively as you can, but with curiosity, sensations in your body with eyes open or closed. And then when you're ready, let your body come back to center and land in any position you like, and just wait there before going to the other side, noticing again with curiosity the sensations in your body, perhaps more vivid now with the asymmetry of what we've done. Notice the two sides of your body. And then take the 2 feet to the bottom right side of the mat if you have the mat, or where that little corner would be. Shift the head a little. Take the left arm overhead again. Any cushioning that's required or desired. Maybe crossing one ankle over the other, maybe not. Maybe resting the wrist of the left arm in the right hand if you need or want that. And choosing whether to have eyes open or closed, whether to focus on your breath, making this few minutes your own, inhabiting it as you see fit. Maybe what you need from this 3 minutes is to solve an issue that you need time and space to think about. There's no rules about how you spend your time. It isn't always possible to empty the mind. In fact, it usually isn't. And for many of us, a moment like this is the only time we get to calmly think through something that needs our thought. It might simply be how to figure out a complicated day of juggling different things that seem to conflict with each other and mess up your calendar and feel like a jigsaw that's chaotic on a table needs to be organized. Or it could be a bigger issue of a relationship or a medical choice that you have to make. Or it could be that what you really need from this moment is to zone out and fall almost asleep. Or you may need to speak to yourself in a mantra or create for yourself some more neutral thought about your body and your menopause that helps you move away from the judgment or the sense of it's not fair or the fear that may have been engendered in you from something that you've read. In CBT, the central tenet really is replacing catastrophic thoughts or unhelpful and hindering thoughts with ones that are true and more neutral. Maybe this is the moment to open up your brain to that possibility. Find that possible sentence. I am managing okay, or I'm not alone, many women are with me, or this will ease, or I am safe. Something you believe and that may serve you better. Two more minutes in your own way. When you feel ready, finding your way slowly out to come to neutral and to wait there for a moment. And you have three options now for our closing minutes. One is to stay as you are in Shavasana or corpse pose. Maybe you'd want to put a bolster under your knees. And why might you stay here? Because perhaps your sense of rest and connection is so attuned right now that you don't want to disturb yourself and you feel physically perfectly comfortable. The other two options I would offer you would be to put your legs up on a chair or up the wall, particularly if you feel you have tired legs or if you're preparing for sleep. And remember that with legs up the wall, the most important thing is to either be very close to the wall with your bottom. And if you can't get close to the wall, in order that your legs aren't lying and locking on a diagonal, that you create an extra bit of wall for yourself by putting a bolster, and it's falling all over the place, up, so that your legs don't lock. They have something to lean against, even if you haven't managed to bring your bum close to the wall. And then the last one would be my favorite place, the place that saved me during my perimenopause on many occasions, which would be reclining cobbler, where you would put your bolster on lying on the floor with something soft for your bum, especially if you have a bony bum. And some of you, depends on your lumbar spine and your neck and your thoracic spine, some people may need the top of the bolster angled up. And then you would have a couple of cushions and or yoga bricks. And you might also use a blanket to do a very lovely thing, which is to fold it at the top of the mat, top of the bolster rather, where you'll eventually bring it over the top of your head to cover your eyes. In reclining cobbler, you sit on the floor in the front of the bolster so that it's touching your back. You're not sitting on the bolster. And then you lie back, soles of the feet together, knees completely supported, thighs and lower legs supported, in fact, bones of both ends of the legs supported. If your chin is sticking up, you might need a little folded blanket or cushion under your head to get more neutral in the neck, just like we were in the Alexander technique section. And again, you may not need the bolster under the block under the bolster. And then there's a lovely thing you can do, which is to draw the blanket over your head and into your eyes. Rest the elbows on the floor, palms up. Or if that feels uncomfortable, but you like the rest of the position, you might want to rest your hands on your body or put cushions on your body and hug yourself. And feel free, of course, to get a blanket if you need it to be warm. When we're warm, the nervous system is much more likely to stay at ease. And for the sake of our timing, just so you know that the timing that I've detailed in the recording, that I will detail in the recording as to how long this session is, will be for those of you who finish in the next 5 minutes when I stop the recording. But for some of you, you may choose to stay a good bit longer if you're resting well and you have nowhere else to be. Highly encouraged that you do that if you have the time and space. So just allowing yourself to rest and digest, perhaps aware of all the metaphors that I've thrown your way this evening or whenever you're taking the recording. And to let them go now and know that whatever is going to be helpful for you will stay with you. See if you can allow yourself to yield your weight. Feel your heaviness. The beauty of heaviness that allows us to surrender. And returning to that idea of spaciousness. Could you imagine spaces between your thoughts? Could you even imagine the spaces between the synapses of your brain? Each thought is a burst of energy that leaps across synapses. And what happens if you imagine those spaces and imagine the leaping of impulses across those spaces going into slow-mo? So that instead of seeing and responding to the impulses, you are able to look into this vast space, this pause, almost as if you are looking in at the universe itself. Meditation is a practice of returning again and 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 again to a chosen point of focus. Meditation is not an achievement, it is a practice of choice, bringing yourself back every time you get knocked off course to your chosen point of focus. So whatever knocks you off course, the key is to have some place that feels like home that you can return to. Maybe it's the navel that we focused on in that movement practice when we were lying on our side and radiating movement into and away from our center. Maybe it's thoughts of spaciousness. Maybe it's orientation through the eyes or choice to be neutral, to look for the neutral. Or maybe it is a mantra a little bit of movement in a lot of places, or a little bit of change in a lot of places. Sustainable, spacious, and without self-judgment. Connected to your journey, your experience, making intimate acquaintance with you. You are very welcome to stay as you are, but as and when you feel the need to come away from your restful moment, do so in increments. I'll guide you now, but please don't come up if you don't want to, but the guidance is there for when you choose to. If you are choosing to move, let your breath come in deeper. Notice the shape your body is making. Notice the weight of your body and what it's touching, the pressure of the body against what it's touching. Notice the area of your body that feels most still. And the area that feels like it's moving the most. Notice anything you can hear. And then with a few blinks, open your eyes and look around your space. Again, taking some time to see objectively something that may be familiar to you, or maybe you've never noticed it before. Certainly not in quite this way. And as you orientate through your eyes, notice any comfort or pleasure in your body. Associating, creating that connection between looking around and noticing what feels good or okay in your body. Connecting outwards and inwards at the same time. And then if it feels nice to have a yawn stretch or any other kind of movement you desire or require, do so. And take your time to roll to your side, to take a moment there before you come to sit. And I'd highly recommend that you take your hand or your hands somewhere on your body that you have tended to judge or wish it was different. Might be your busy brain or your forgetful brain. It might be your changing belly shape. It might be your achy shoulder or anything. And be aware of your breathing and aware of your holding, your ability to hold yourself. Thanks so much for joining, and go softly with yourself as you go through your day. And may you be well. May you be free from harm. May you progress where possible. May you find ways to sit at ease with the rest. And may all beings know peace. Om Shanti. Namaste. I bow to you. Thank you very much. Rest well and enjoy the spaciousness.